with Pater Bonton.
We're all cherished children of the Father on high. There is a love that has no end. Through His Son, known as Jesus. If we choose to believe that our hopes will grow, our lives will bear fruit, and we'll feed empty souls. Ask not for what you need, just pray for the strength to do. Like all of God's creatures, your needs will come true. We're all cherished children of the Father on high. There is a love that has no end. Through His Son, known as Jesus. We're all cherished children of the Father on high. There is a love that has no end. Through His Son, known as Jesus. Our journey through life is to do God's will.
Yes, it is.
Sharing our truth through love and peace, we can make the world whole.
Amen, my sister.
We're all cherished children of the Father on high. There is a love that has no end. Through His Son, known as Jesus. We're all cherished fathers, cherished children. There is a fathers, cherished children. All of His fathers, cherished children.
Beautiful.
Welcome to this evening's session. Our next speaker is Derek Samaras, and we've now traced the course of evolution and revelation for, let's go for almost the full million years. And Chris brought us up to our current epochal revelation. Now we're going to go to today and forward. And Derek is the perfect person to help us do that. Again, you all know Derek. So either in case you don't, or whether you just want a refresher, or you just have to listen to me share my experience of Derek. Just a couple things which stood out to me as one. I've been lucky enough for a lot of you have come up to me and said, wow, you're doing a lot of work, thank you, which I really appreciate, and I'm honored to do that. But if there's one person who's doing definitely even more work than I am, and not as widely visible, and not receiving, I'm sure, enough of the same gratitude or more, is Derek. All of this technology, all of this projection, all of this sound, not to mention all of the people who are watching these on our live streams. So that's all the doing of Derek, and he's just been an amazing support, both in the planning of that and now it's execution. So thank you, Derek. But his combination of revelation fellowship technology is not limited to us. I typed Derek Samaras Urantia into Google and had to load about 15 pages before I got to anything I didn't want to watch or read. Right. So his contributions to our online presence are unparalleled. And if you haven't watched any of his videos or listened to his podcasts or read things he's written, you're in for a treat. So seek that out. And along those lines, actually, I'm going to take this off the screen and I'm going to show you this, which is a brand new app that he has just launched called the Urantia Book Network. It's on the Apple Store for iOS. It's also on Google Play for your Android phones. And you are all instructed to, we don't require, there's no test of faith in the Urantia community, but you are required to download this app and start using it. But as you can see from the design, it's wonderful, right? And I'm sure the content is and the functionality is going to be even more so. And again, that's Derek. So, and look, it's free. So, so much better, right? Yeah, not actually. Yeah, you need to download it and give it 5 stars, right? So that's important thing. All right, let me get back to the slides here. It's ironic that you're waiting for me to do this when he could do it. He could do it better. So as I said, Derek was very helpful in our planning process, and obviously the execution of this conference. He's not a problem solver; he's a problem eliminator. And just been a force for stability and good in all that we've done. And then I had one more point to make, which I wrote here, but now I can't read it. Yeah. Personality eliminator. Problem eliminator, not personality eliminator. His personality is a problem eliminator. See, the written word, you have to go beyond the written word, which is failing me now. Anyway, here's Derek.
All right. Hi, my friends. I feel proud to call you my friends. I've served you. I've loved you. You've helped me grow. I've seen all of you grow. Thank you for being patient with my growth. And I love you guys. So thank you for welcoming me. Okay, so are we the new Salem Missionaries? It's a good question. It's not an easy answer. I decided to, after a lot of reflection, that I have a really elaborate 3-phase system of how I chose to answer this. And you can see, highly detailed. But what it does do, what we do have here is it raises another question, is what would it take to be the new Salem Missionaries? So I just kind of want to paint a page real quick of them and what it looked like. And I just want to read one part from the Urantia Book on paper 93. It says, the lives and experiences of the men and women who ventured forth from Salem, Mesopotamia, and Lake Van to enlighten the tribes of the Eastern Hemisphere present a heroic chapter in the annals of the human race. So just this heroism of these people, men and women, who had enough inspiration within them that they traveled all around the world at a time when we didn't have airplanes or anything like that. So I just kind of want to spark the inspiration of that heroism of what that might be, at least by my own demonstration. Now, when Jesus and Ganid were in Alexandria, as Chuck shared with us, there were some world religions and writings and ancient texts that they came across. Now, in that paper, in 131, there's all sorts of quotes and prayers and hymns to the Lord from Salem missionaries. And so these are words from Melchizedek that we're getting, right? The reach of that. So I just want to read this one prayer real quick. It's from the Zoroastrians. Lord, teach us how to live this life in the flesh while preparing for the next life of the spirit. Speak to us, Lord, and we will do your bidding. Teach us the good paths, and we will go right. Grant us that we may attain union with you. We know that the religion is right, which leads to union with righteousness. God is our wise nature, best thought, and righteous act. May God grant us unity with the divine spirit and immortality in himself. Nature, divine nature, thought and act, good thoughts, good deeds, good words, integrity. Inspiring. I enjoyed that prayer. But remember that this is a Zoroastrian prayer, because we're going to come back to that. So what the missionaries were dealing with on that planet was a different thing than we were dealing with. And that's why we're not the same. We have a lot more to work with. We have a lot more gifts. If you understand, at that time in our planet's development, all of man's truly religious reactions are sponsored by the early ministry of the adjutant of worship and are censored by the adjutant of wisdom. Man's first supermind endowment is that of personality encircuitment in the Holy Spirit of the universe creative spirit, the mother spirit. And long before either the bestowals of the divine sons or the universal bestowal of the adjusters, this influence functions to enlarge man's viewpoint of ethics, religion, and spirituality. So essentially, we're climbing the ladder of the adjutants and then being indwelled by the fragment of God. And that's how they could do it then. There was no other way. There wasn't the spirit of truth. There wasn't the universal outpouring of thought adjusters. There wasn't even a demonstration of Jesus's life. You had to be quite courageous to battle through that. And as we read this in Kurt's presentation, you who today enjoy the advantages of the art of printing, little understand how difficult it was to perpetuate truth during these earlier times. How easy it was to lose sight of a new doctrine from one generation to another. There was always a tendency for the new doctrine to become absorbed into the old body of religious teaching and magical practice. A new revelation is always contaminated by the older evolutionary beliefs. So I'm going to start painting the picture of what they were up against. There's plenty of anxiety and pain in our world now, but there's another level of anxiety and pain in our world then. And so in Mesopotamia at that time, in 2000 BC, the religions of Mesopotamia had just about lost the teachings of the Sethites. Seth was the oldest son of the second garden from Adam and Eve. He started a new missionary plan, and that was pretty much all that there was between Adam and Eve and Melchizedek. So at 2000 BC, it was sliding very hard. And we're largely under the influence of the primitive beliefs of two groups of invaders. The Bedouin Semites who had filtered in from the western desert, and the barbarian horsemen who had come down from the north. Okay, so they assimilated the existing cultures and kind of brought down the level of revelation in those cultures, like the Sumerians. That's where we get like the flood stories and things like that, the original tales of creation, Genesis. So they were kind of refashioned the culture to fit more of their evolutionary tendencies to appease the demons and spirits and ghosts. And you can see why, because on no world can evil spirits possess any mortal mind subsequent to the life of a paradise bestowal son, Jesus. But before the days of Christ Michael on Urantia, before the universal coming of the thought adjusters and the pouring out of the master's spirit on all flesh, the spirit of truth, these rebel midwares were actually able to influence the minds of certain inferior mortals and somewhat to control their actions. That's a scary thing, right? So that's what Melchizedek was up against. And then his missionaries. And even more, they tell us after the death of Adamson, the remainder of the secondary midwares became a strange and unorganized and unattached influence on Urantia. From that time to the days of Macavento Melchizedek, they led an irregular and unorganized existence. Now, this is a cool part. They were partially brought under control by this Melchizedek, but were still productive of much mischief up to the days of Christ Michael. And during his sojourn on earth, they all made final decisions. This is Michael's sojourn on earth. All those midwares made final decisions of their future destiny. The loyal majority then enlisting under the leadership of the primary midwares. What we have, the united midwares, right? So in Jesus's life here, on Pentecost, that pretty much crushed all that rebel midwear activity. It did. But it didn't mean that that's what the missionaries were up against up until then, right? So here we have Macavento Melchizedek. And this is a new illustration by a wonderfully talented artist, John Carlo. He is in Florida, and the fellowship commissioned him to make one of the few illustrations of Macavento, so they're all original, so we could bring back the face that hasn't been shared much. Here's one, and what I want to point out here is where we know that he introduces himself to Amdon, the herder, the Chaldean herder, and Melchizedek began his mission of the revelation of truth of the reality of God when, with a sweep of his arm, he turned to Amdon saying, El Elyon, the Most High, is the divine creator of the stars of the firmament, and even of this very earth on which we live. And he is also supreme God of heaven. I am Melchizedek, priest of El Elyon, the Most High, the one and only God. I don't hear a lot of hemming and hawing. He's direct and to the point. He knows what he's talking about. He's lived it, and he's not trying to convince anyone. He's speaking truth from the heart. This is the bestowal of Macavento Melchizedek. It's not like the bestowal of Woody Allen or anything like that. There's not like hemming and hawing. He's not mean, but effective. And I like to try to capture that spirit of being direct and being kind, honest, but clear, not mixing words, not apologizing for truth, right? So here's a really cool factoid. Maybe some of y'all know, but here's another illustration by John Carlo on the left of Macavento. I thought it was pretty cool. It's a cool sketch. But this incarnated Melchizedek received a thought adjuster who indwelt his superhuman personality as the monitor of time and the mentor of the flesh, thus gaining that experience and practical introduction to Urantian problems and to the technique of indwelling an incarnated son, which enabled this spirit of the Father to function so valiantly in the human mind of the later Son of God, Michael. When he appeared on earth in the likeness of mortal flesh, and this is the only thought adjuster who ever functioned in two minds on Urantia, but both minds were divine as well as human. So you can start to see a brother going first here, blazing the trail and building up experience for himself, building up experience for that thought adjuster that is going to go in Jesus's life here too. So he was the recipient of this Urantia experience. So you can see how Jesus could build on some of the things that Melchizedek did. You know, the communion and the Last Supper, the bread and wine, faith, things like that. And what I started to gather is that there's really like three types of things that really stand at the forefront of this effective ministry that comes from this type of inspiration. And it's really this living faith, this reach of influence, and working with the spirit of truth. And there's a couple quotes that kind of reflect that I'd like to share, where Jesus says, "Question not my Father's power of love, only the sincerity and reach of your faith. All things are possible to him who really believes." So the reach of our faith, even, are we reaching to God? Or are we reaching within and just trying to mentally control what's happening? Are we reaching, or are we pulling something? Let's reach and meet God up there. The adjuster's work is much more effective after the human ascender attains the third circle and receives a personal seraphic guardian of destiny. Now, why did I bring this up? I feel that missionaries, true missionaries, are at least at that third circle by then. They can now effectively create within the environment. They are not reacting to the environment. They are no longer a victim. They are a creator, child of God, right? So within that, you have such creative potential in the indwelling thought adjuster that you can start to act like a little creator. That's what our inheritance is, right? So we're never limited to what we have. Even Jesus, when he was on the cross, he was saving people and being friendly. You know, he wasn't limited to that. He reached. And so this is so heavy that no one added this last one when they talked about faith and trust, but I can see how assurance on top of that, faith, trust, and assurance. And that assurance, I think, is really important because that's what allows us to know that we're secure and safe and loved and that we can step into the dark and not be afraid. Or perhaps we're so assured that we have something that we're so passionate about that who's got time to be afraid. When you're building the kingdom, it's all light, it's all drive, inspiration. But the living faith, I mean, that's for all of us. No, you don't have to be a professional athlete to be living faithfully. This happens for all of us. We can all do it. It's the choice of reach. And so in my own personal experience, I've had some back pain lately. And I was going through the Urantia book and I found this one part where this really crippled woman came up to Jesus to seek healing. And she was just bent over so bad. And the problem is that it was in her own mind. It wasn't a possession. Her depression had crippled her so much, the weight of her own mind, the weight of her own thoughts. I know a lot of people like that on this planet still. And Jesus goes, woman, if you would only believe, you could be wholly loosed from your spirit of infirmity. And this woman who had been bowed down and bound up by the depressions of fear for more than 18 years, believed the words of the master, and by faith straightened up immediately. All right. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I can heal my back. We got this. And then that kind of reminds me also is when Jesus was like up in the mountains and his apostles were approached by a father whose child was epileptic and possessed by an evil spirit, a Safed, right? And the apostles were there without Jesus, and they were trying to heal this kid, but their methods weren't quite working, shall we say, and they were getting quite frustrated, and the poor child was suffering even more until Jesus did finally return, and he saw the scene of what was going on, and he took that child and helped him. But what he had to say to the apostles was interesting. It was almost a scolding, but still a teaching moment where he said, how long will it take you to learn that you cannot time shorten the course of established natural phenomena, except when such things are in accordance with the Father's will? Nor can you do spiritual work in the absence of spiritual power. And you can do neither of these, even when their potential is present, without the existence of that third and essential human factor, the personal experience of the possession of living faith. Must you always have material manifestations as an attraction for the spiritual realities of the kingdom? Can you not grasp the spirit significance of my mission without the visible exhibition of unusual works? When can you be depended upon to adhere to the higher and spiritual realities of the kingdom, regardless of the outward appearance of all material manifestations? The personal experience of the possession of living faith. It's a practice. It's a practice. And we grow in this like a relationship. It grows. So even then, even later, he admonishes them to grow. He says, I admonish you to give up the practice of always quoting the prophets of the old and praising the heroes of Israel, and instead aspire to become living prophets of the Most High and spiritual heroes of the coming kingdom. In yourself. That's what, like all of us. He's talking to us right here. Remember how each new revelation, and they always kind of drag it back to the old one, constantly speaking and quoting in the past and leaving it there. When living faith is calling us forward, the Spirit of truth is here showing the way to go into, right? To step into living faith and build the kingdom. So they got me thinking. So this reach of influence and versus inspiration and influence. And I see in our society, and I'm sure a lot of us feel this, the desire to be trending, to be materially accepted with all the other material things that are happening. Even in the Urantia movement, we want to be popular and accepted and validated and trending. But what I'm seeing is that it's still a material mode. Inspiration is what lights the heart in someone to go build kingdom in their own accord. Inspiration has no rules or laws. It has principles that are founded on love and creativity, kindness. Inspiration is what changes people completely, changes societies. Influence runs out. Influence enslaves, I feel. Because if you're always constantly trying to mentally influence or be influenced, you're never authentic in your own self. But I'm not chastising that word by any means, so please don't think that. Now, one thing that I want to go back to is the idea of attaining the third circle and receiving guardian seraphim of destiny at that point. And I think this is an important point because with these missionaries and you guys here, achieving the third circle, your reach of influence grows and you can potentially be dangerous and you can potentially receive a lot of danger when you're out there in the field. Trust me, I know what it's like to be out there alone. It's scary and you can get hurt because there's a big target on you always. So that's why the guardian seraphim show up and make sure you're not going to cause too much damage and even try to keep you safe. Because now you're on their team. When you're at that point, you're on their team. You're working with them. You're building the kingdom with them. So you got support. So I want to go into is this idea of what Jesus, how he was asking Peter to serve, because I feel that we have the same experience where we get to know the life of the master. And he said, feed my sheep, do not forsake the flock. Be an example and an inspiration to all your fellow shepherds. Love the flock as I have loved you, and devote yourself to their welfare, even as I have devoted my life to your welfare. And follow after me, even to the end. Spirit of truth and inspiration. It's always there. In friendliness, in kindness. That's what's so effective. I think about when the apostles were so downhearted because Jesus was just nailed to the cross and they were so depressed. What got him out of that? What kept them loyal to their mission was when they think about what a good friend he was. It was their friendship loyalty that kept them loyal on this mission. It wasn't grand volcanoes exploding. It wasn't sacrifices or blood. It was friendship loyalty. That's like us, man. This is a fellowship, right? So loyalty, 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 friendship. And thank you, Paula, for showing me a lot of that culture. Love you. Okay, so now let's do a little history because I want to tie something in that's kind of cool. So I'll just start reading this. The doctrine of the Abrahamic covenant was virtually extinct in Persia. So when Melchizedek made his covenant with Abraham, and then Abraham had missionaries and whatnot, it started to backslide. When, in that great century of moral renaissance, the 6th before Christ, Zoroaster appeared to revive the smoldering embers of the Salem gospel. I love how they say the smoldering embers because fire is such a big deal in Zoroastrianism. Zoroaster was himself directly in contact with the descendants of the earlier Melchizedek missionaries, and their doctrine of the one God became a central teaching in the religion, which he founded in Persia. Aside from Judaism, no religion of that day contained more of these Salem teachings. And I think it's interesting little factoid is that Zoroaster then influenced Cyrus the Great, and he was the one who released the Hebrews from Babylonian captivity. So I kind of want to tie it together here and show what the reach of influence can actually be, from Macavento to Zoroaster to Freddie Mercury of Queen. And so one thing that you might not know is that Freddie Mercury, or Farooq Balsara, was born in Tanzania, and he was born of Indian Persian parents who were Zoroastrian. And so he learned in his house good thoughts, good deeds, good words. And I kind of want to, I got curious about it. My friend asked me to watch the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, which is the documentary about Queen. I was a little hesitant. I don't know. I thought it was going to be silly, but then something really stood out to me. The lyrics of some of his songs. And I can read some of them. Here, this one, The Miracle. It's a miracle, all God's creations, great and small. We're having a miracle on earth. Mother Nature does it all for us. The wonders of this world go on, the hanging gardens of Babylon, Captain Cook and Cain and Abel, Jimi Hendrix to the Tower of Babel. If every child on every street had clothes to wear and food to eat, that's a miracle. If all God's people could be free to live in perfect harmony, it's a miracle. That time will come one day, you'll see, when we can all be friends. Yeah. You can almost hear Melchizedek's kindliness in that. That's the reach. Here's another one. We are the champions. I've paid my dues time after time. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. And bad mistakes, I've made a few. I've had my share of sand kicked in my face, but I've come through. It's been no bed of roses, no pleasure cruise. I consider it a challenge before the human race, and I ain't gonna lose. And we mean to go on and on and on and on. We are the champions, my friends. We are the champions of the world. So when we ask, are we the new Salem Missionaries? No, we are the champions of the world. Why? Does anyone know why? Well, who else has overcome the world? And now, as I am about to leave you, I would speak words of comfort. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I make these gifts not as the world gives, by measure. I give each of you all you will receive. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be fearful. I have overcome the world, and in me you shall all triumph through faith. World champions. Through him, we can all triumph in our living faith. So there's this cool line in here where it says, Jesus may not be the technical and detailed example for all the mortals of all the ages on all the realms of this local universe, but he is everlastingly the inspiration and guide of all paradise pilgrims. From the worlds of the initial ascension up through a universe of universes and on through Havona to paradise. Jesus is the new and living way from man to God, from the partial to the perfect, from the earthly to the heavenly, from time to eternity. It's pretty clear. This is the way. And I know you all are on it. May it grow. God bless all of us that we can do this, and let's try harder. And so I've got a video that I made with Gary Tong, and it's some words of courage and encouragement from the master. And I thought I might play it for us. I have loved you. Whoops. What do I got to do? I'm a tech guy. I have loved you and have prayed that you would love your brethren, not dismayed by the events just ahead. Keep a firm hold on your brethren and see that they do not find you downcast. Put not your trust in the arm of flesh, nor in the weapons of steel. Establish yourself on the spiritual foundations of the eternal rocks. Remain firm in your faith, and you shall soon know the reality of that which you believe. Be gentle. Love even your enemies. Be tolerant. And remember that I have trusted you with many things. Judge not by appearances. Remain firm in your faith when all appears to vanish. Be true to your commission as an ambassador of the kingdom.
Be unmoved by the events now impending. Remain unshaken, even when you cannot see the way. Be loyal to your oath of consecration, and forget not the mercy that received you into the kingdom. Let no man cheat you of your eternal reward, as you have withstood the inclinations of the mortal nature. Be willing to be steadfast, no matter how difficult it may be. Just now, you must walk by faith and not by sight. Doubt not that I am able to finish the work that I have begun, and that I shall eventually see all of my faithful ambassadors in the kingdom beyond. Do not allow the things which you cannot understand to crush you. Be true to the affections of your hearts, and put not your trust in either great men or the changing attitude of the people. Stand by your brethren. You may be crushed by disappointment, but your spirit shall rise above all that may come upon you. And what you have failed to learn from me, my spirit will teach you. Seek the true realities of the spirit, and cease to be attracted by unreal and material shadows. Be not weary in well-doing, and I would warn you to beware the slippery paths of flattery and the poisoned darts of ridicule. I am the light of the world, and whosoever will believe my teaching shall no longer abide in darkness. Walk where you have this light, so that the oncoming darkness and confusion may not overtake you. He who walks in the darkness knows not where he goes. But if you will choose to walk in the light, you shall all indeed become liberated sons of God.
So that was a cool group project with Jeremy and Gary, and it was a good time. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap up, but I just want to thank you guys for being in my life and for all the work everyone's done. I've been so accepted. And one thing that I really want to reflect on is how I was able to be accepted. And I remember my first Urantia thing. I was in the middle of taking care of my grandparents, like 7 years they were passing, and I needed a break. And I went to Colorado and met up with my godfather, Buck Weimer, and I had already been reading. And I told him I needed something, and he encouraged me to call Barbara Mayer and get on the 2x2 and go to Croatia with them. And I contacted her and I told her that I'm a videographer and editor, and I'm really willing to help out and bring my own equipment. And I got it. And I went out there and it changed everything. But what I'm reflecting on is that I stepped in with a role to play and a contribution to give. And that's such an important thing, because it's appreciation, it's service, and it's love all right there, right away. So you don't know how the angels do this or how they bring people in your life to do this for you or with you. But I mean, I even experienced it this weekend. Jesse Thurston, thank you for your help, showing up out of nowhere. Thanks, buddy. That's what it's about. Stepping up and supporting. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve, for listening, and may the light of the world shine through your eyes as well. So God bless you all.